please welcome Ben Barrett-Forrest.
Hi, everybody. Okay, hit it. So, my name's Ben, and I love typography. And that's my favorite font right there. It's called Untitled Sans, and on first glance, it might look pretty normal, but oh no, it's pretty special. So if you look really close, you will actually notice that every single line has a slight gentle curve to it. There's not a single straight line. There are no right angles. And compare it to Helvetica on the right. Great font, very clean, precise, crisp, but I think Ideal just has this energy and this character that I just adore. I just can't get enough of it. And it's one of more than 250,000 typefaces that exist in the world right now, and there are more being produced every single day. And each one of these is a little labor of love. Well, not a little labor of love, they're actually incredibly labor-intensive to produce, made for your reading pleasure. So my love of typography compelled me to create a stop-motion video that traces the history of typography back from the Gutenberg days all the way up until now. And I cut out hundreds of tiny little pieces of black paper and got very familiar with all of these fonts. But it now has more than 1.5 million views on YouTube, and you can watch it. And so I also have created a couple decks of playing cards that teach everything you need to know about graphic design and typography. And these babies have been mailed out to more than 90 different countries around the world. And I think that just kind of speaks to the international attention to typography. So yeah, currently I'm the graphic designer for Douglas Magazine, which is kind of a dream job for a type nerd, because I just get to sculpt all of these interesting stories into hopefully beautiful and easy to read formats for the reader. So I'm gonna say this sentence 2 ways. Thanks for coming to my talk. And thanks for coming to my talk. So same words, very different vibe. And that's just all based on the intonation of my voice. And typography is kind of the same. So you can have 2 different fonts. These are both wishing you welcome home. Same letters, very different vibe going on. And amazingly, you are picking up all of this emotional nuance and detail just from these shapes, just from these letters that you are looking at, and you're getting so much. And there's tons of other styles of fonts that do the very same thing. And some of them are kind of culturally impressed upon us. Like the fashionable font is often used by fashion magazines. So it's like, no surprise, we think that's fashionable. But then some is just innate, like chubby things are cute, you know? And so fonts are also amazing at like setting a place or a time period. And whether it's correct or not, some of these fonts really just bring you to a specific location or time. And it's quite amazing. So I'm gonna give you a little lesson about typography now, just to get your mind working here. 2 kinds of fonts, serif, sans serif. Serifs have these little tweaky marks on the end, which make them look a little more traditional, great for books. Whereas sans serif fonts don't have the little tweaky marks, look a bit more modern, and they're excellent for screens. Leading is actually the space between the lines of text, named after little strips of lead they used to use on letter presses. Too tight, hard to see where you are. Too loose, you kind of lose the flow. You gotta nail it. You gotta get it just right, and then it's easy to read. A titling font, not a tittling, looks like it, it's not. Very fine details, really good at big sizes, but if you make it small, you're gonna lose those tiny little things, whereas a text font, it's a bit blunter, so it's easier to read large quantities of. Important distinction there. Fonts come in different weights and widths, so believe it or not, these are all the same typeface, just in many, many different widths and weights. And same typeface, but you can get so many different feelings and vibes from the same set of letters, basically just stretched and squashed. Here's a fun fact about the ampersand. it actually used to be 2 letters, an E and a T, Latin for et, which means and now, after hundreds and hundreds of years, it has been written together until it's become the ampersand, which I think is just such a funky, cool factoid and a beautiful figure. Okay, so kerning. This is big, this is important. It is the actual space between the letters, which you don't really think about, but as you can see by these examples, it's the difference between a font that looks good, smooth, and looks really junky. So here's some examples of really bad kerning. Yeah. Let that sink in a little bit. It really matters. But good typography can also aid in public safety. So these are 2 different highway sign fonts. The top one has been being phased in over the last few years around North America, and it's apparently upwards of 8% more visible from a distance compared to the one below. And that's because, as you can see, it has more open spaces and it just is easier to read. So why does typography matter? I think it matters because you are exposed to it every single day, and it is basically what sculpts the information that you are reading. And just like my tone of voice, it can determine what you think. It can determine what you're reading. And it's fun. It's beautiful stuff, and we live in an amazing typography city. Everywhere you look around Victoria, there is incredible lettering that I think you should appreciate. And so yeah, just keep an eye out. Don't do bad kerning, but just appreciate the good typography. Thanks, folks.